During the first portion of the art history course, I was actually failing the course. I just could not grasp the concepts. I, suffered from major test anxiety, so I wouldn't fully elaborate on what it was I was comparing, what it was I was thinking about. In class it was a lot easier to have a general conversation. So one of the techniques that I used when I started taking tests was, of course, predict what I thought the questions would be, and then structure my notes in a manner where I was just having a general conversation of explaining the material as if I were in class. And then I applied that to the test material or any of the classwork that we had to make sure I got all of the major details.
I personally study by going through PowerPoints. Usually my professors are really good about having all of their PowerPoints up, like even from the first day of class. I know Dr. Toronto will do that sometimes, like all of her stuff is up from the very beginning, or they'll put them up as they go, it's really helpful, because even if you have a textbook, sometimes it's just easier, especially now that most of us are more used to using PowerPoints and things on the computer to study. Then you can do a PowerPoint, and you can even take the pictures, like the paintings and things from the PowerPoint, and make your own, where you do, and I've done that once or twice, taken the painting and put it on one slide, and then the name of the artist and the period and everything, put it on the next slide, so that I have to know. It's a different way for me to do flashcards. I know that there are like online versions of flashcards, but I haven't really utilized that as much. I think I might start doing that this upcoming spring. And I do that when I help other people study too. Like, we'll go through the PowerPoints and I'll have them, or even with myself when I study, I say the name of the painting, who painted it, the time period that it was painted, what is the political or social meaning of the painting, because that's really important, and what was happening, even sometimes what was happening at the time of the painting, because like I said, if you don't understand the period, you don't understand the work. So I think it's all really important. Even if your teacher doesn't necessarily peg that down as one of the main things that he or she wants, you should always, I feel, for art history, go over that so that you do understand it better than you think you do. I think as far as studying, one way that my mom was telling me about, because she was an art history major when she was in college, and they didn't have, computers to do PowerPoints and online flashcards and stuff. So what she would do is she would take her textbook and she would take index cards and cover up the information on the side, kind of like what you would see in a PowerPoint, or even if you go to a museum website, or the text underneath the, the paintings in the museum, artist, date, the width and height and all that. And she would cover that up and do basically the same thing you would with flashcards, but just without, actual cards.
Usually start by just reading straight through the notes to remind myself of what we went over, what the most important paintings were. And normally the most important paintings, the ones that are going to show up on the test, are the ones that I have the most bullet points about underneath, because that's the ones that the professor emphasized the most. Then I'll usually pull up the PowerPoints from the class off the Moodle site that the teacher gives us, and just take a look at those paintings that I thought were most important, or the teacher pointed out the most. And those are the ones that I stick to learning the painter, the artist, as well as the title on, of course, which time period that painting was from, like Romanticism, Classicism, things like that. And basically stick to learning those instead of overwhelming myself by learning, of course, the whole PowerPoint or something, such as that. And then again, reading over the notes 2 or 3 times again before I take the test.
Use flashcards, so the test was set up in a way where you had to identify certain things, and you had to give lengthy explanations on what it was you were identifying, and you compared and contrasted a few items as well. So what I did was I would take the main concepts, put them on flashcards, and put the definition of the concept on the back of the flashcard and then the concept on the front of the flashcard. So that kind of helped me with understanding the concepts. As far as being able to compare and contrast the artworks, it was just more so of using the slideshows that were provided by the professor to compare that and take that with the notes that I had taken in class. So the notes were kind of structured by, just style and time period of the work, the artist of the work, and then just kind of relate the historical information of the artist to what the artwork would have been. So, would have known that this artist paints or, sketches in this particular style. So those were the things that I would look for when I was comparing and contrasting the work on the test. There were words on the flashcards, and I would use the images that were just on the PowerPoint because that gave me a better picture of being able to see, the texture, the brush strokes on the artwork, and just kind of all of the colors, how everything was contrasted and structured, versus looking at it on a flashcard, which would have only given me, the name of the work, the author, the painter of the work, and then what the historical significance of the work was. So I would use the PowerPoints and then kind of remember the work in that manner and just attach the artist to the work, and then that way I knew, okay, this artist has this particular style of doing his work, and relay that as well to the time period that the work was going. Okay, so I know this particular historical event was going on at this time, so this artwork was related to war, or this work was related to poverty, or whatever it was. This one was critiquing the government. I did a mixture of both memorizing techniques as well as reviewing my notes. With Professor Toronto particularly, I knew if she repeated things multiple times in class that it was bound to be on the test, so I would just kind of put an asterisk beside the concept that we were discussing in class if it was something that she repeated multiple times, and I knew to look for that on the exam. I also tried to, after the first exam, predict what will be on the following exam. So after looking at the structure of her exams the first time, I would try and predict the questions that she would ask, having known what the structure was.